Have you ever felt like you're suffocating under the weight of others' expectations, as if invisible puppeteers' strings are pulling at your soul, forcing you to perform a dance that is alien to you? That your life, as it is more an skillfully played role in someone else's play than a genuine, heartfelt expression of your unique essence? Perhaps, deep inside you, in those hidden corners rarely touched by the light of daily bustle, lives an unquenchable longing for something more, for some lost or yet undiscovered part of yourself, for a sense of wholeness, meaning, and true, unadulterated being. If these questions, like a persistent tuning fork, resonate in your soul, know this: it is not a sign of weakness, delusion, or failure. It is a call, a powerful, relentless call to the most important, most sacred, and perhaps the most difficult journey a person can undertake, the journey of individuation. Carl Jung, one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century, a visionary of the depths of the human soul, the founder of analytical psychology, considered individuation not just a psychological concept, but a central, vitally important task for every human being. This is not a trendy term from the psychotherapist's arsenal. It is a profound, often arduous process, fraught with trials and crises, yet incredibly rewarding, of becoming who you were meant to be from your very birth, a unique, whole, authentic individual, living in deep, resonant harmony with your innermost essence, with your true self. But how does one embark on this path, which Jung described as the path to oneself? Is there a map for this uncharted territory full of mysteries and discoveries? How not to stray off course in the fog of doubts and fears? Today, drawing on the boundless wisdom of Carl Jung, on his insights that reshaped the landscape of modern psychology, we will attempt to sketch such a map. We will examine in detail 5 key, though inextricably interconnected, steps, or rather, stages that lead us along the sacred path of individuation. This will not be a simple, superficial instruction like, do this, do that, and you will find yourself. No, it will be an invitation to deep, honest, and at times painful inner work, to courageous self-exploration that can forever change your perception of yourself, your relationships, your place in this vast, mysterious world. Are you ready to hear and answer the call of your soul and embark on the most exciting adventure, the journey to your true self? If so, let's begin. Part 1. Awareness and dismantling the persona, shedding imposed masks and gaining the freedom to be. The first, and often most uncomfortable, yet absolutely necessary step on the path of individuation is the courageous awareness and gradual, layer by layer, dismantling of our persona. What is the persona in the Jungian sense? Imagine an actor on stage. To play a role, they need a costume, makeup, a certain way of speaking and moving. The persona is precisely our psychological mask, the facade, the social role or set of roles we present to the world to be accepted, to meet the expectations of society, family, professional environment, to function successfully in the external world. This could be the role of the exemplary family man, the indispensable specialist, the cheerful and carefree friend, the strong and independent man, or even the disillusioned cynic and eternal rebel. In itself, the persona is not something bad or pathological. It is a necessary tool for social adaptation and interaction. The problem, as Jung pointed out, arises when we completely identify with this mask, when we become so fused with it that we forget who we truly are beyond it, when the persona transforms from a useful tool into a prison for our soul. How excessive identification with the persona manifests in daily life. A person living exclusively through the persona is constantly preoccupied with what people will say. Their self-esteem, like a weather vane, fluctuates depending on external approval or disapproval. They are terrified of showing their imperfections, their vulnerability, their true, perhaps unpopular, feelings and thoughts, because these do not fit the idealized image they have so meticulously constructed over years. They can be the life of the party in public, yet feel desperately lonely and empty when alone, because without the familiar role, without the audience's applause and attention, they don't know who they are. Such a person's life turns into an endless performance where they are an actor, desperately trying to please the audience and earn their approval, but having completely forgotten their own soul, its quiet yet persistent whisper. As Jung perceptively noted, the persona is that which we are not, but what we ourselves and other people think we are. It is an illusion of identity that, if unrecognized, can lead to deep inner discord and a loss of life's meaning. You can achieve all the external trappings of success, yet feel profoundly unhappy, because the success belongs to the mask, not to you. Why it is so important to realize and begin dismantling the persona for individuation. The path of individuation, the path to one's true self, is categorically impossible as long as we live locked in the cage of our persona. The mask, however beautiful and comfortable it may seem, conceals our genuine being, our unique self. Like a thick curtain, it prevents us from hearing the voice of our soul, from understanding our true, deep-seated needs, desires, and values. Realizing that you are immeasurably more than your social role, your profession, your status, or even your habitual character traits is the first painful, yet incredibly liberating step. It is comparable to taking off tight, uncomfortable, suffocating clothes that you have worn for too long, afraid to show your imperfect body. Initially, it may be frightening, shameful, and unfamiliar to feel your nakedness, but it is absolutely necessary to give space for your genuine, authentic being to breathe and grow. Jung did not call for a complete rejection of the persona. That would be tantamount to renouncing life in society. He spoke of the need to make it more flexible, permeable, consciously managed, so that it serves as an expression of ourself, not its jailer. Practical steps towards awareness and transformation of the persona. Honest and ruthless self-observation, without judgment. Start by carefully noticing what roles you play in various life situations. How does your behavior, your words, intonations, even facial expressions change depending on whom you are interacting with? Your boss, your subordinate, your partner, your parents, your friends. What feelings, anger, sadness, fear, joy, do you habitually suppress to meet expectations or maintain a certain image? Keeping a persona journal. Record your observations. Note situations where you felt not yourself, where you had to pretend or hide your true thoughts and feelings. Analyze what fears or beliefs compel you to wear a particular mask. This will help you see the gap between your persona and your inner world. Deep self-analysis through questions. Ask yourself uncomfortable but important questions. What expectations, my own, parental, societal, am I desperately trying to meet? What true desires, needs, values of my own am I sacrificing to maintain this image? Who am I really if I discard all these roles, statuses, labels? What will remain if I stop trying to please someone or prove something? Finding and creating a safe space for authenticity. This could be a psychotherapist's office, a confidential support group, deep, sincere relationships with a close person, where you can allow yourself to be vulnerable, real, imperfect, without fear of judgment or rejection. Such spaces are invaluable laboratories for exploring your true self. Behavioral experiments. Try, gradually and in small doses, to behave more authentically in situations where you usually wear a mask. For example, express your disagreement if you truly disagree, or refuse something that doesn't suit you, even if it might disappoint someone. Observe your feelings and the reactions of others. Dismantling the persona is not a one-time act, but a gradual process of awareness and liberation. It does not mean becoming antisocial or rude. It means learning to be in the world without losing connection with your soul, consciously choosing how and when to use your social skills, but always remaining true to your inner center. This is the first, but decisive step towards ceasing to live a life imposed from the outside and starting to create your own, authentic life from within. Part 2. Encountering the shadow, integrating the dark side, and reclaiming hidden strength and wholeness. After we begin to realize the illusory nature and limitations of our persona, when the first cracks appear on its smooth facade, we inevitably encounter the next, even more complex, frightening, and perhaps most important stage on the path of individuation, encountering our shadow. The shadow, in Carl Jung's profound understanding, is not merely a metaphor for something bad. It is an archetypal repository of everything we have, consciously or unconsciously repressed, denied, deemed unacceptable, shameful, or dangerous within ourselves. These are our dark sides, suppressed fears, hidden anger, unlived envy, tormenting jealousy, secret greed, deep-seated selfishness, uncontrolled aggression. But, and this is crucial to emphasize, the shadow is not just a dumping ground for negativity. Within it, like in an abandoned treasure chest, may also lie our suppressed talents, unrealized creative impulses, unclaimed desires, instinctual wisdom, primal life force, childlike spontaneity and playfulness, our capacity for deep love and compassion, everything we were afraid to express, or that was rejected and condemned during our upbringing and socialization as inappropriate, silly, or wrong. Why encountering the shadow is so important and so difficult for individuation. Carl Jung was unshakably convinced, without awareness and integration of the shadow, individuation, that is, becoming a whole person, is impossible. If we continue to deny our shadow, it does not magically disappear. On the contrary, it begins to control us from the dark depths of the unconscious, manifesting in the most unexpected and often destructive forms. These can be uncontrolled outbursts of anger that destroy relationships, chronic envy that poisons the joy of life, inexplicable fears that paralyze our will. Very often, the unintegrated shadow manifests through projections, when we see our own shadow qualities in other people and fiercely condemn them, failing to notice the log in our own eye. Self-sabotage, recurring negative life patterns, addictions, psychosomatic illnesses, all these can be the cry of our rejected shadow. Encountering the shadow is so difficult and painful because it mercilessly shatters our idealized, pure and innocent self-image. It forces us to admit that we are not as good, right, kind, or flawless as we would like to appear to ourselves and others. This is a powerful blow to our ego, to our narcissism. To acknowledge the presence of envy, greed, or cowardice within oneself requires immense courage and honesty. How the shadow manifests in our lives. Practical examples. Imagine Irina, who always considered herself a model of kindness and altruism, but constantly suffers from being used and unappreciated. In therapy, she discovers with horror her suppressed anger and resentment towards loved ones, as well as a hidden desire to control them through her victimhood. This is her shadow. Or take Oleg, a successful businessman who despises weaklings and lazy people. In the depths of his shadow may lurk his own fear of failure and a denied need for rest and vulnerability. And Elena, who constantly criticizes her friends for promiscuity and frivolity, may be suppressing her own sexuality and zest for life, deeming them sinful. The shadow can also manifest in recurring dreams of persecutors, monsters, or dark figures. These are symbolic images of our rejected parts. Practical steps towards integrating the shadow and reclaiming its gold. Behind every shadow quality, as Jung taught in the alchemical tradition, lies gold, aurum non vulgi, not common gold but philosophical gold, an invaluable resource, unused energy, hidden potential, which, when realized and transformed, can enrich our personality and life. Integrating the shadow is not about indulging our dark impulses or becoming a bad person. It is a conscious, compassionate acknowledgement of these impulses, understanding their roots and causes, and transforming their destructive energy into constructive power. Ruthlessly honest self-examination. Start with the question, what qualities do I most hate, condemn, or despise in other people? There is a high probability that these are your own shadow projections. What feelings do you categorically forbid yourself to experience? Anger, envy, fear, sexual desire. What causes you an irrational sense of shame, guilt, or self-loathing? Deep dream analysis. The shadow very often and very vividly speaks to us through our dreams. It may appear in the guise of frightening, repulsive figures, persecutors, monsters, rejected or despised characters. Record your dreams, especially recurring or emotionally charged ones. Ask yourself, what part of me, what quality or experience of mine does this dream image symbolize? Working with projections, reclaiming the shadow. When you catch yourself in strong, irrational condemnation or irritation towards someone, stop and ask yourself, is this quality not present in me, albeit in a hidden, suppressed form? Am I not projecting my own shadow onto this person right now? This does not mean excusing others' bad behavior, but it helps to reclaim your own energy. The method of active imagination. Jung developed this unique technique for direct dialogue with images and figures of our unconscious. Imagine your shadow as a specific image, a person, animal, mythical creature, and enter into an imaginary dialogue with it. Ask it what it wants, what it fears, what message it carries for you, what need it is trying to satisfy through its destructive manifestation. Finding the gold in every shadow trait. Suppressed anger can hide immense energy for asserting your boundaries, for protecting what is dear to you, for healthy assertiveness. Repressed envy can be a valuable indicator of your unrealized desires, ambitions, and talents that are waiting for their time. Deep-seated fear can indicate a need for security, wisdom, and caution. Integrated fear becomes foresight. Integrated anger becomes the ability to say no and act decisively. Integrated envy becomes a powerful motivation for growth and development. Encountering the shadow is, without a doubt, one of the most courageous and transformative acts on the path of individuation. It is an acknowledgement of one's human multifacetedness, one's capacity for both light and darkness. But it is precisely through this difficult yet necessary encounter that we gain access to a colossal layer of hidden energy, become more whole, authentic, tolerant of ourselves and others, and free ourselves from the power of unconscious patterns that have for years prevented us from living a full, meaningful, and joyful life. As Jung said, the shadow is the doorway to the self. Part 3. Integrating the anima and animus, the inner marriage of opposites and attaining psychic wholeness. The next significant and often very subtle stage on the path of individuation, according to Carl Jung, is the awareness, encounter, and gradual integration of our inner contrasexual part, the anima in men and the animus in women. The anima is the archetypal, inner image of femininity in the male unconscious, and the animus, correspondingly, is the archetypal, inner image of masculinity in the female unconscious. These archetypes are not merely reflections of our personal experiences with members of the opposite sex, although this experience, particularly with the opposite sex parent figure, certainly influences their individual manifestation. The anima and animus are, above all, collective, inherited images, carrying the full spectrum of qualities associated with feminine and masculine in a given culture and time. They serve as inner guides to our soul and to deeper layers of the unconscious. Manifestations of the unintegrated anima in men and animus in women. If these powerful inner figures are not recognized, understood, and integrated into the conscious personality, they can manifest in quite destructive and problematic ways, both within the individual and in their relationships. In men, an unintegrated shadow anima can express itself as inexplicable mood swings, irrational emotionality, excessive sentimentality, capriciousness, touchiness, and indecisiveness. He may be prone to bad moods that he himself cannot explain. Or, conversely, he might project an idealized, unrealistic image of the perfect woman onto real partners, inevitably facing disappointment when they fail to meet this ideal. He might unconsciously seek a muse, savior, or mother in a woman, not realizing that he is actually searching for his own rejected feminine part, his soul. Such a man may fear his feelings, considering them a weakness. In women, an unintegrated shadow animus can manifest as dogmatic, categorical, unyielding opinions, often not her own but borrowed, uncritically absorbed ideas from authority figures. She might be prone to fruitless arguments for argument's sake, to harsh, devaluing criticism of others and herself, and to a desire to dominate intellectually or morally. Or conversely, she might project the image of a strong, all-powerful man onto partners, falling into dependent relationships and shifting responsibility for her life and decisions onto them. She may be full of brilliant ideas but completely unable to bring them to fruition, as her inner man is not integrated and does not help her act. Why integration of the anima? Animus is so important for the process of individuation and wholeness. The integration of these contrasexual archetypes leads to immeasurably greater psychological wholeness, maturity, and inner harmony. For a man, integrating the anima means developing his emotional sphere, capacity for empathy, intuition, deeper and more meaningful relationships, access to creative inspiration, and his inner world. This does not make him less masculine, but, on the contrary, enriches his masculinity with depth and sensitivity. For a woman, integrating the animus means developing her logical, analytical thinking, purposefulness, ability to act decisively in the world, assert her boundaries, inner strength, and intellectual independence. This does not make her less feminine, but endows her femininity with clarity, focus, and the ability to realize her dreams. This process can be metaphorically called an inner marriage, a sacred union, hierosgamos, of the masculine and feminine principles within our psyche. This union makes us more balanced, creative, and capable of genuine intimacy both with other people and with ourselves. Jung believed that the anima and animus also serve as crucial bridges to deeper layers of the collective unconscious and, ultimately, to ourself. Practical steps towards integrating the anima, animus, and reclaiming their gold. Integrating these archetypes is a subtle, intimate, and often lengthy process that unfolds through our real relationships with members of the opposite sex. They serve as screens for projections. Through creativity, dreams, and deep introspection. Awareness of projections in relationships. Carefully analyze what qualities you particularly idealize or, conversely, demonize and cannot stand in your partners or potential partners. Very often, these are projections of your unintegrated anima or animus. Ask yourself, which of these qualities do I not acknowledge, suppress, or fail to develop in myself? Conscious development of opposite qualities. Men may find it beneficial to purposefully develop their emotional sensitivity, for example through art, music, connecting with nature, keeping a feelings journal, learn to express their emotions, and trust their intuition. Women can develop logical thinking, for example, through problem solving, studying exact sciences, participating in debates, purposefulness, and the ability to assert their opinions and act decisively. Creative self-expression as a bridge to the soul. All forms of creativity, painting, music, poetry, dance, writing, can be powerful channels for expressing, exploring, and integrating the anima and animus. The anima is often associated with imaginative thinking, feelings, intuition, and inspiration. The animus is associated with meaning, structure, ideas, and logos. Analysis of dreams and fantasies. The anima and animus very often appear in our dreams and active fantasies as symbolic male and female figures. For example, a beautiful stranger, a wise guide, a seductress, a hero, a witch, a tyrant. Dialogue with these figures, for example, through Jung's technique of active imagination, can help understand their messages and integrate their energy. The gold of an integrated anima, animus. An integrated positive anima grants a man access to his own soul, depth of feeling, creative inspiration, capacity for empathy, compassion, and building truly close, trusting relationships. He becomes more alive, feeling, intuitive. An integrated, positive animus gives a woman clarity of thought, an inner core, the ability to realize her ideas and projects in the world, the courage to be herself, to defend her truth, and to act according to her convictions. She becomes more focused, decisive, and capable of creative воплощения. Essentially, integrating the anima, animus is the key to genuine, equal partnership, both with other people and with oneself, with one's inner opposite. Integrating the anima and animus is not an attempt to erase gender differences or become unisex. It is a process of enriching one's personality with qualities and energies traditionally attributed to the opposite sex, which leads to greater psychological androgyny in the sense of wholeness, not external manifestations, and to a much fuller and more harmonious life. This is another crucial step on the path to oneself. Part 4. Encountering the archetype of the sage, old man, old woman, attaining inner wisdom and meaning. As we selflessly advance along the winding path of individuation, after the painful but liberating encounter with the persona and its limitations, after the courageous plunge into the depths of the shadow and the beginning of its integration, after the subtle and complex work of recognizing and accepting our inner contrasexual part, the anima or animus, we may be ready to meet another extremely powerful and significant archetype. This is the archetype of the wise old man, for men, or the wise old woman, for women, also known as the archetype of meaning or spirit. This archetype symbolizes the accumulated wisdom of ages, profound knowledge of life and death, intuitive understanding of the universal laws of being, the ability to see the essence of things beyond superficial bustle, spirituality, and connection with the transcendent. This is our inner guru, our invisible mentor, our spiritual guide, who appears in our psychic life when we have matured enough to hear and perceive deeper, existential truths, manifestations of the sage archetype in our lives. This archetype can announce itself in various ways. Very often, it comes to us in dreams or during active imagination in the form of symbolic figures, white-haired teachers, hermits living in mountains, ancient wizards or prophets, priests or priestesses, or simply unknown, but very authoritative, old and wise people who give us important advice or show us the way. In our external life, this archetype can be activated during periods of deep personal or spiritual crisis when we desperately seek answers to the eternal questions about the meaning of life, our purpose, the nature of good and evil. It can manifest when we turn to the study of spiritual practices, great philosophical systems, deep psychology, or sacred texts. The appearance of this archetype and our ability to perceive it often signal that our consciousness is ready for a qualitative leap, for a transition to a new, higher level of understanding ourselves and the world. The meaning and function of the sage archetype for the process of individuation. The sage archetype plays an invaluable role on the path to wholeness. It helps us find profound meaning in the events happening to us, even in the most difficult and painful ones. It allows us to see a broader, cosmic picture, to go beyond our narrow, egoistic perception and connect with eternal, universal truths. This archetype opens up access to the bottomless treasuries of the collective unconscious, to the accumulated wisdom of all humanity. Integrating this archetype means not just accumulating external knowledge, but developing our own inner wisdom, the ability to trust our intuition, to find answers and guidance within ourselves, and not only in external authorities or dogmas. It is the ability to see the essence of things behind superficial phenomena, to understand the hidden laws of life, and to make wise, balanced decisions. Dangers, pitfalls, and shadow aspects of the sage archetype. Like any other archetype, the sage archetype, if not properly integrated or if there is excessive identification with it, has its shadow side and can create certain problems. Ego, inflation. One of the main dangers is when a person, having come into contact with the energy of this archetype, begins to identify with it. They may fancy themselves an all-knowing guru, a prophet, a bearer of absolute truth, thereby losing touch with reality, with their human nature, and their capacity for self-criticism. This is what Jung called psychic inflation, projection of all wisdom outward. The opposite extreme is when a person completely denies their own inner capacity for wisdom and understanding, projecting it exclusively onto external teachers, gurus, books, or teachings. They become a blind follower, incapable of independent thought and critical reflection, fruitless philosophizing and detachment from life. A shadow manifestation can be a retreat into abstract, detached from real-life reasoning, intellectual games that lead to no practical changes either in the inner world or in external life. Wisdom without action is dead. Cynicism and devaluation. Sometimes, faced with the complexity and paradoxical nature of life, a person may fall into cynicism, devaluing any attempts to find meaning or spirituality. This can be a defensive reaction to the fear of the unknown or disappointment. Practical steps towards integrating the sage archetype and reclaiming its gold, true wisdom, which this archetype carries, lies not so much in accumulating a vast amount of knowledge, but in its deep experiencing, comprehension, and wise application in everyday life. It is the wisdom of the heart, not just the mind. Developing intuition and inner listening. Learn to regularly listen to your inner voice, to that quiet, small knowing that comes not from logical constructions, but from the depth of your soul. Trust these intuitive insights, practicing deep reflection and meditation. Regularly set aside time for calm self-analysis, reflections on the meaning of your life, your true values, your place in the world. Meditation helps to quiet the superficial noise of the mind and hear the voice of inner wisdom. Meaningful study of the wisdom of the ages. Read great philosophical, spiritual, psychological texts that resonate deeply with your soul. But do not just passively consume information. Actively comprehend it. Relate it to your own life experience. Ask questions, finding meaning in personal experience. Learn to see lessons, messages, and hidden meaning even in the most difficult, painful, or seemingly random life situations. Ask yourself, what is this experience truly teaching me? What deeper message does it carry for my soul? Cultivating humility and openness to the new. True wisdom always goes hand in hand with humility, with a clear understanding of the limitations of one's current knowledge, and with constant openness to new experiences, new ideas, and perspectives. The wise person knows that they know nothing. The gold of an integrated sage. Integrating this archetype grants us a deep, unshakable sense of meaning and purpose in life, inner peace and equanimity even in the face of life's storms, the ability to accept life in all its multifacetedness and complexity, wisdom for making right and timely decisions, and also the ability to be a sensitive guide, a source of inspiration and unobtrusive support for other people, not imposing one's own truth on them, but helping them find theirs. Encountering the sage archetype is like acquiring an inner compass that always points north, to your true essence. It is an invitation to look beyond everyday routine and bustle and connect with that eternal, unshakable source of wisdom that calmly and patiently lives in the depth of each of us. This is another crucial step on the path to a more meaningful, conscious, and spiritually fulfilling life towards one's self. Part 5. Connecting with the self, attaining the center, wholeness, and one's unique purpose. The culmination, the crown, and simultaneously the eternal horizon of the individuation process, according to Carl Jung's profound conviction, is the conscious connection with the self, capitalized to distinguish it from the ego self. The self is the central, all-encompassing archetype, the archetype of wholeness, order, and meaning, which embraces and integrates all aspects of our personality, both conscious and the boundless unconscious. It is our true, genuine, transcendent I, our inner divine center, the spark of eternity within us, towards which we instinctively and steadily strive throughout the long and often thorny path of individuation. If the ego, as we have already discussed, is the center of our consciousness, then the self is the center and circumference of our entire psyche, including consciousness, the personal unconscious, and the bottomless depths of the collective unconscious. Jung compared the self to the sun, around which all the planets of our psychic system revolve. What is the self and how it manifests in our lives? The self, by its nature, is difficult to describe in rational, logical language, as it transcends our everyday ego consciousness and its conceptual apparatus. It often announces itself through symbols of wholeness, unity, and transcendence that spontaneously arise in our dreams, during active imagination, in meditative states, or in a creative surge. The most common symbols of the self are the mandala, a concentric design symbolizing order and wholeness, the circle, the square, the cross, quaternity, fourness, as well as images of the divine child, symbol of new beginnings and potential, the androgyne, symbol of the unity of masculine and feminine, or various divine luminous figures. The experience of direct connection with the self, even brief, can be experienced as a state of profound inner peace, absolute harmony, profound meaningfulness of all existence, a sense of inseparable unity with the entire universe, all-encompassing, unconditional love, and complete acceptance of oneself as one is. It is a state where we feel not just a small separate part of something larger, but that larger itself, that eternal, indestructible being. These are peak experiences that change our worldview and self-perception. The role of the self in the process of individuation. The self, according to Jung, is both the initial driving force and the ultimate, though eternally attainable, goal of the entire individuation process. It, as it were, calls us to itself from the depths of the unconscious, gently but persistently guiding us through dreams, intuitive insights, meaningful coincidences, synchronicities, and life lessons. Connection with the self means that we have achieved a high degree of integration of various aspects of our personality, reconciled inner opposites, consciousness and unconscious, persona and shadow, anima, animus and sage, and our ego now serves not its narrow, egoistic goals, but the deeper, transpersonal goals of the soul, the goals of the self. The ego becomes a conscious and responsible executor of the self's will. The self is not a static state, but a dynamic process and an eternal horizon. It is crucial to understand that connecting with the self is not some final, once and for all achieved state of blissful enlightenment after which all problems disappear. Individuation is a lifelong process, and the self is more like a constantly beckoning horizon than a final destination. We may experience moments of deep, ecstatic connection with the self, but then we inevitably return to the everyday tasks of our ego, to life in the material world. The goal of individuation is not to dissolve the ego in the self, but to make the connection between them stronger, more flexible, and conscious, so that the ego can draw wisdom and guidance from this deep source. Practical aspects on the path to the self and its goal. The path to the self lies through all the previous stages we have considered: courageous awareness and transformation of the persona, bold encounter and integration of the shadow, subtle work on accepting and developing our contrasexual part, the anima, or animus, and connecting with the inner wisdom of the sage archetype, cultivating the practice of presence and deep mindfulness, the ability to be fully here and now, to observe one's thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations without judgment or involvement, helps to weaken the tyranny of the ego and create an inner space in which the quiet voice of the self can manifest. Following one's inner call, one's Tao, or individual myth, listen to your deepest intuition, to what brings you a genuine sense of meaning, joy, and fulfillment, even if it goes against generally accepted norms or the expectations of others. This may be the voice of yourself, pointing to your unique purpose. Creativity as a sacred path to the self. Any form of authentic creativity that comes from the soul, be it painting, music, dance, writing, gardening, or even cooking with love, can be a powerful way of connecting with the self and expressing its unique, inimitable essence. Attention to symbolic life. Pay close attention to the symbols that appear in your life, in dreams, in works of art, in nature, in synchronistic, accidental events. They can be important messages from the self, signposts on your path. Acceptance and integration of paradoxes. The self often manifests through paradoxes and the unification of opposites. Strength in vulnerability, wisdom in acknowledging one's ignorance, life in death, order in chaos. The ability to accept, hold, and integrate these seemingly incompatible opposites is key to achieving wholeness and connecting with the self. Selfless service to something greater than one's own ego. When we go beyond our narrow, egoistic interests and begin to sincerely serve something larger, be it other people, society, nature, spiritual values, or a higher purpose, we often approach the experience of the self as the self is by nature transpersonal. The goal of the self. This is psychological and spiritual wholeness itself, authenticity of being, the deepest inner peace and tranquility, independent of external circumstances, a sense of inseparable unity with life and all that is, all-encompassing, unconditional love and acceptance of oneself and others, a clear understanding of one's unique purpose and the courage to follow it, no matter what. Connecting with the self is the pinnacle and simultaneously the core of the Jungian path of individuation. It does not mean becoming perfect, ideal, or izbavitsa at all human problems and sufferings. It means becoming who you truly are, a whole, unique, conscious, and responsible individual, living in deep, meaningful, and creative harmony with your soul, with other people, and with the world at large. It is finding your true home within yourself. Conclusion: the infinite and inspiring journey to oneself. The path of individuation, as brilliantly envisioned and described by Carl Jung, is not a smooth, straight road to a predetermined destination. It is, rather, an exciting yet often unpredictable and challenging voyage across the boundless ocean of one's own soul, where each of us is the courageous captain of our ship. It is a lifelong journey, full of unexpected discoveries, painful clashes, moments of despair and ecstatic delight, falls and triumphant ascents. The 5 steps or stages that we have examined in detail today: awareness and transformation of the persona, the courageous encounter and integration of the shadow, the subtle work of accepting and developing our contrasexual part, the anima or animus, connecting with the inner wisdom of the sage archetype, and finally, the sacred aspiration to connect with our deep self, and not a strictly linear, once and for all completed sequence. They are, rather, interconnected, interwoven, and often recurring spirals at new levels of one great infinite process of self-knowledge, self-healing, and self-realization. Perhaps, on this path, especially at the beginning or during moments of crisis, you will feel lonely, misunderstood, confused, frightened. This is normal. It is part of the process. Individuation demands immense courage from us, the courage to honestly look into the darkest, most hidden corners of our soul, the courage to ruthlessly tear off familiar but suffocating masks and abandon outdated but so familiar identities, the courage to follow our unique, inimitable path, even if it radically differs from the paths of others and does not find understanding among those around us. But the reward for this difficult yet noble journey is truly immeasurable. It is not just success in its superficial, commonly accepted sense, money, career, status. It is something much, immeasurably greater. It is finding oneself, one's authenticity, one's unshakable inner center. It is a life filled with deep, personal meaning, inexhaustible creativity, genuine, unconditional love, and that inner peace which does not depend on external storms. It is the realization of that very privilege of a lifetime, to become who you truly are, in Jung's words. It is the opportunity to live not someone else's imposed life, but one's own, unique, and priceless life. Remember that you are not alone in this great striving towards yourself. Millions of souls before you, alongside you, and after you are seeking and will seek this sacred path to their true nature. And the wisdom of Carl Jung, like a bright, unfading beacon, continues to illuminate this path for us, full of mysteries, dangers, and incredible treasures. Thank you for being with us in this deep and, I sincerely hope, inspiring dive into the world of individuation. If this video touched the strings of your soul, if it made you think, if it gave you food for your own personal inner work, please give it a like. Share this video with those who are also in search of themselves and their path, and subscribe to our channel. We will continue to explore together the boundless and fascinating expanses of the human soul, drawing on the legacy of great thinkers. And now, in conclusion, I invite you to a small but important reflection. At which of these 5 key stages of individuation do you feel you are now? What challenges, what tasks, what discoveries are most relevant for you at this segment of your journey? Share your thoughts, feelings, and experiences in the comments under this video. Let us create a living, supportive community of seeking, wandering souls, inspiring and encouraging each other on this sacred, infinite path to oneself. Until next time, and may your unique journey of individuation be filled with wisdom, courage, love, and the dazzling light of your true, authentic self.